We're continuing having a look at the process of how we, in our minds, create characters as personas, as different selves through energy, or from within a starting point of energy, where we had a look at the failure character and in the success character, and how we, within the failure character, for example, initially lived it into one's world and reality, and then started seeing, realizing, and understanding how this acceptance and allowance of I'm a failure was affecting and influencing consequentially one's responsibilities, obligations, and future in this world. And how we currently, in our awareness, exist in relationship to our mind, where the equation exists within observation and participation, and then to connection and definition, and then to reaction, which then leads to determining and controlling our mind, ourself, and our behavior. In the sense that if we have a look at the failure character, when the thoughts come up, or the imagination, and we participate in it, and as we participate in it, it's, we're like actually in the participation also observing what's happening in our minds, in that we accept and allow ourselves to define ourselves as what comes up in the mind, and according to that we react to it in terms of the failure character, like seeing thoughts and imaginations of failure coming up, and then you get all the reactions of I'm a failure and it's useless, and you go into powerlessness, helplessness, victimization, and then from there, you kind of physically become that which automatically come up in your mind, and there you manifest yourself as a failure through accepting and allowing self to listen to what's coming up in the mind. And so in the previous post, we had a look at what we do in terms of creating change in the mind, which is not actual real self change or awareness change or physical change. We reverse the equation and create a polarity character, a character that is better than the previous character, and how what would happen is these two characters basically battling it out in our minds. So where we left off in the previous post, we had a look at the point of where this failure character as yourself now realize that, okay, it's time to face the music, so to speak, because my world and reality is slowly but surely kind of becoming out of control. And so what happens in our minds and our awareness is, it's like, again, we kind of observe and see that, this character or this persona or this self that we're accepting and allowing is not serving our living in this world and reality. And then what we do is we react to ourselves, as we also mentioned in the previous post, and how when we react to ourselves, it's kind of odd in the sense that there is the one that is reacting and the part of ourselves that we're reacting towards. So there's already two selves existent in such a moment. And so with that comes the reversing of the equation, the participation, observation, then to connection and definition, and then to reaction. We're in the creation of a new opposite character. We go from reaction to the previous character, then a redefinition, a reconnection, and then a reparticipation, reobservation, and then to behavior and physical living. So in using the example between the failure character and the success character, or the lazy character or the discipline character, we then, with the example that we'd walked, where what now happens is you find yourself as a failure within the context of being lazy, and in that, how that laziness affected your mind, your life experience, your relationships, responsibilities, and obligations. And here comes the reversal of the equation, where now you react to yourself, or a part of yourself, as the lazy character, for example. And that reaction then is, in a negative context, because what initiated, for example, the realization that you cannot continue accepting yourself to be lazy or to see yourself as a failure. And, fear came in because there was a chance that you were going to lose your job or profession, or not get into a particular position. And so therefore you reacted in fear. And then from the fear, now what's interesting here is that very few human beings jump the polarity in terms of going from failure or laziness to desire for success or becoming disciplined. Most part, human beings, for example, would invert and re-invert the reaction or the fear that they experience. In other words, they will rather hold on to this one character, this one persona, this one self, because the self-definition is so extreme, into all levels of their mind, physical experience, and so, wouldn't want to give that up, even to the detriment or consequence of their future in this world and reality. And therefore, when reaction of fear comes up in relation to their laziness or them being a failure, their mind in that same character shift into a character or a persona or a self that justify, excuse, or validate it. It kind of creates an additional outflow or branch of the failure or laziness character. Where you go, well, this is who I am, or this is how I am, and I'll never change, and what's the use, and fuck the world, and fuck this, and I'm not going to do this, and do something else, and maybe this is meant to be, all those backjets will come up, and so the individual will remain as the failure or laziness character. But then you get those that will jump the polarity in terms of creating another character to fight the initial character and to change. So this then happens through the reversal of the equation, in terms of going from reaction to connection, definition, and then participation, observation, and then change their behavior or living. And this works as follows. So let's say, for example, they had then the failure or laziness character, and they reacted to it in fear. And now that fear becomes quite extreme in terms of the individual seeing that, listen, this character, this laziness, this failure is not going to work. I cannot do this anymore. And so in that fear, what's fascinating is on a unconscious quantum mind and quantum physical level, the individual will be generating then so much fear or reaction in relation to a character, and in that will start polarizing the entire mind, into, for example, a negative. What's interesting about consciousness is how it always exists within very strict relationships and dynamics and rules and parameters, in terms of always keeping a balance within and as the energies that is existent in all the characters or personalities and emotional and feeling bodies. Meaning that for consciousness, keeping the balance between the positive and negative and neutral energies is of utmost importance, because within those relationships, as we've also explained, that you can listen to in the Quantum Mind interview series available on EQAFE, is that you have negative, neutral, and positive energies, and depending on the nature of the energy, negative, neutral, and positive, a specific amount of energy is resourced from your physical body to keep that energies in existence. So therefore, if one's mind ever goes to one extreme of only one energy, this then can set your consciousness kind of out of control in its relationship to the physical body, and resource either too much or too little energy, and that can influence all the relationship of the mind and of consciousness. And so therefore, for its own survival, it would always want to balance energies. I mean, even if one do, sometimes feel that you, in an all-encompassing perspective, is in like either one positive or one negative experience, if you do have a look at how your thoughts move and your memories move and your back chats and things like that, there are some moments still where the equilibrium between the positive, neutral, and negative energies are managed, and that some thoughts will be charged with either a positive, negative, or neutral energy. So consciousness can hold you, for example, in a state of only a positive or neutral or negative energy, but that state only exists on the conscious or subconscious mind levels of the mind consciousness system. In the unconscious, quantum mind, quantum physical, it can still manage all the relationships between the energies through charging particular thoughts, memories, backchats, emotions, feelings, subtle quantum physical reactions with positive, negative, or neutral charges. And so kind of multidimensionally manage the energy equilibrium within the physical body. So with all of this, let's say an individual now, for example, goes into fear in relation to the lazy or failure character, and then essentially react to him or herself. And within that, the fear comes up and builds, and within that, the mind is now going into like a negative experience, too negative. And so therefore, what the mind will do to equalize itself from the negative is either shift the being into the positive or the neutral. Now, the positive being, for example, going into desire for change, and the neutral being remaining in the lazy or failure character, because see, they reacted in fear to their lazy or failure character, and in that fear reaction they shifted the energy balance or energy equilibrium into more of a encompassing negative energy experience. So going back to the lazy failure character would be going again back to a neutral. Now what's fascinating here as well is that if the being go back into the neutral, into their lazy or failure character, is that the being can change the initial negative relationship or negative reaction to the lazy or failure character into a positive through justifying, excusing, or validating their lazy or failure character, which we mentioned earlier in the interview. You know, kind of going back into the lazy failure character, saying, you know, this is who I am or how I am, what I am. I'm not going to change. This is my life. I'm not going to change for anything or anyone else. And, you know, all those backchats and thoughts and imaginations that come up. And so what they do is they then change their own character or personality or persona into a positive for themselves. And so they don't change. All that changed was now their energy, relationship, or experience to their own character or personality. Or what will then happen is, you know, from the negative fear reaction to their character or personality or persona, they will go into creating a new character where the desire to change will go into a positive, a desire from fear to desire, from fear of their laziness or failure to desire for success or discipline, and so create for themselves the opposite of failure or laziness, which is success and discipline. So here what happens then in relation to the equation is that they went from reaction as fear, then to redefinition or reconnection, which is what happened during the energy shift of going from the negative fear to either neutral, like back into their laziness or failure character, and redefining it and reconnecting their relationship to it and making it positive for themselves. And so not changing, only changing their experience of themselves. And or where they then go into the redefinition or reconnection in terms of now redefining themselves from the fear into the desire, and then they go into the desire energy, and from the desire start creating the discipline or success character or personality. Now, it's also fascinating in these energy changes where they either make their personality positive, you know, the lazy or failure character positive for themselves and actually remaining within it and as it and justifying, excusing, and validating it, or changing into a new positive personality or character, such as the success or discipline character or personality, is how the thoughts or backchats or imaginations change within this process. You know, where initially they had the lazy or failure character, and I'm a failure and I'm not going to make it and it's not worth it, it's useless, and I'm going to stay this way and I'm not going to change for anyone, what's the use, and there's no future for me anyway. You know, those type of thoughts and backchats and imagining your future and not seeing one and projecting into the future and seeing this is how you're going to stay forever. And in that process, you're generating and creating your emotional and feeling bodies and energy experiences, and that then determine your living and behavior within your internal and external world and reality. But what's interesting is, you know, when the shift happens where they go from the reaction, the fear, to their lazy or failure character, and then shift into the opposite polarity as desire, and then in that desire energy create then the success or discipline character and personality, where how they create that character is through thoughts, through imaginations, through backchat, like I have to change, I cannot fail, or I can't be lazy and I mustn't be lazy, and I must succeed, I have to succeed, and if I don't succeed I'm going to fail and I'm going to be lazy again. And I'm never going to change, and I have to change. So it's interesting how this process of change happens in reference to the lazy or failure character. You know, it's like the change is spoken from the negative into the positive. And so with those thoughts and imaginations and backchats in the desire energy, the success or discipline character or personality is then created. But what is interesting is how we mentioned in previous posts how, you know, you will now always in your mind exist within this polarity, this fear of failure and desire for success. And every single time that failure character like comes up, you're going to go into reaction, fear reaction to it, then feel the desire, and then in the desire shift into the success character, then start speaking the thoughts and the backchats and imaginations. I can't fail, I won't fail, I must succeed, I will succeed. And then in that energy you charge enough, and then it builds up into your physical body, and then that moves you into physical or behavioral change. So it's fascinating how this whole process unfolds in the mind, with, you know, how a negative energy comes, shifts it into a positive in your mind, then from the positive generate enough energy, and only then you move and change yourself into physical reality. Alright, so in this interview post, we have now had a look at how through that equation change, how we create characters and or justify, excuse, and validate already existent characters, and how all of that happens through energy. And so how we use energy in the mind, that energy that's generated through thoughts, through backchats, through imaginations, to kind of propel and create and generate enough energy to kind of move us within physical reality. So in the next post, we're going to have a look at what we mentioned in previous posts regarding how through writing, self-forgiveness, and self-commitment, one change through self-awareness, which gets us back to the heading of these posts, you know, from reactive responses to self-response ability, which is changing one's relationship in terms of always just reacting and responding to energies, in terms of actually establishing a self, which is establishing your awareness in what it is that you're accepting and allowing in your mind, taking responsibility for it as actually changing it in self-awareness, and where one's motivation for living, for being, for existing doesn't originate from energy. It originates from an awareness, a realization, a real standing, a here-ness with and as your physical body, in which no energy is involved in any way whatsoever. So you can imagine the extent of the processes that's going on in the mind at the moment with regards to how we're talking ourselves literally into kind of enforcing ourselves to move within the physical body. So this will really assist and support with many that's facing like these internal battles, you know, where it feels like you literally have to battle yourself into change with energy, and how to realize, see, and understand that you only need breath, awareness, and within that awareness, you know, who you are in every moment of breath, and in that your movement of self, within a decision of who you are. I mean, in that there's no energy involved. It is really you here living in equality in one is with and as the physical body. Alright, so here we had a look at how we create ourselves through the equation of participation, observation, to definition, connection, and then reaction, and how we reverse it in creating a personality or character where we react, redefine, reconnect, and then participate and observe, and how that influence both equations then generate and create energy in our minds to influence, affect, and determine our living and behavior. I mean, where is our awareness within it all? Where's who we are within it all? If within and during both processes, all we're doing is reacting. So in the next post that we'll do in writing and continuing within our blog, we'll lay it all out structurally and practically, having a look at how these equations move with what we've now walked in this interview, and then within that, what is real awareness, what and who and where is self within it all, and how that is established through writing and self-forgiveness, commitments, and self-corrective application, where our living do not require energy of consciousness, of mind, really only require who we are. And what is that who we are? And where has that who we are always been? If we've always only been slaves to energy. Thank you very much.